Alright, welcome back to Game 10 of Lucid's 2022 tournament, where we are playing Phlegra. It is turn 19. We are attacking a throne this turn. Enter my password. Not used to that. Used to the email games. We have some site searching, one of which was actually finally successful. Please be earth gems. Nope, it's water gems. We'll take it. But yeah, we really could be using some earth gems. Very sad about the lack of those. And yeah, there's a battle in Xibalba. So Vettiheim is moving in. They've moved fast. And yeah, I've actually played a little bit of Vettiheim, so not totally unfamiliar. They have some of their sacreds here, so we can take a look at their bless. Yeah, kind of a light rainbowy sort of thing. So full shock resistance, always relevant. Fire resistance, that makes us a little sad. Defense skill, I think, is relevant. The Vetti have pretty good defense, and they stack in really tightly, so it's more difficult to harass their defense down. Reinvigoration is always nice on sacreds, but they also have a lot of sacred mages. And then Undying +8. This maybe was just because they wanted high death on their pretender for other reasons. I don't think the Undying particularly helps the Vetti. They don't have a ton of hit points, so that is a pretty big boost to their HP. Right, that's another 16 hit points. But if they do dip down into that Undying, then they do die at the end of the battle. So that's always a bit sad. And then they're up against pretty much nothing because Midgard had already, cleared this of its province defense. And yeah, Midgard definitely hit me up and was a little bit bemused as to why we'd been moving so slowly. And, yeah, certainly we could have moved faster. But again, that would have drawn us into conflict with someone, I figured. And, we just weren't ready to move fast enough. Now, whether or not we could beat this, maybe. Definitely Xibalba has heat scales, and the Rim Vetti really don't like that, and there isn't really much, and there's pretty much no mage support here, I would say. The Goads are mages, but they're just Nature 1, so unless they've been going for Swarm, a couple like Wolf Rider Chaff. Yeah, I think the Goads are just here for Blessing. Well, I take that back. They do have a Nature Gem, so potentially there's going to be some Swarm. So yeah, I mean, this wouldn't be trivial for us to beat. So we'll see. It really does depend on what Utgard does. And then we have a battle. This is where we failed our raid, I believe. Yeah, and we're now raiding with Mouflon. And it looks like Xibalba probably not a whole lot of money left, and felt it wasn't really necessary or in their best interest to PD dump this even further. I was thinking that potentially they would, since they knew that we were interested. This is a province we were interested in, and it's a valuable province, and it's a pretty good PD type. Although I mean, I guess it is late age, so a more normal PD type. But yeah, this is probably more standard Phlegra raiding groups. We'll probably use more of these guys in the future, but we might bring out the Cyclops Smiths again. We'll see. And then it looks like Ulm is now vulturing Kalem, I'm guessing. I'm assuming since Ulm is attacking, things aren't going super well for Kalem, since they are already being attacked by Micklin, and we've seen Micklin make some progress. We also have it on pretty good authority that Micklin is being piloted by a good player, and they have quickness on their bless. And that is always relevant. So yeah, it looks like things aren't going so hot for Kalem. Ulm is using, just some of their, I'm not sure if these guys are, okay, they are sacred. So these are some of late age Ulm's sacreds. Speaking of rainbow blesses, this looks, full rainbow. Attack increased, defense increased, a little bit of reinvigoration, some shock resistance, of course. Gotta have that shock resistance. Undying, blood surge, pretty common on cavalry. They get the lance, so they're likely to get the kill. Mountain survival is a little interesting, although I will say that if you go cold scales, all the mountain passes being closed can make movement really annoying. So, having your guys be able to move through there can be really nice. And then a little bit of undead leadership, probably relevant for late age Ulm, although I can't say I'm particularly familiar with them, and yeah, I think this is going to be pretty easy. Barbarians are dangerous enough to cut through the protection, but the cavalry has enough defense. So that works out for Ulm, and I would say Kalem is probably screwed at this point. It was already looking like that was going to be an uphill struggle against Micklin, and now they're going to be fighting two people. And then, yeah, now we are attacking this throne. We'll see. It'd be really nice if we could snipe a sorceress before they get up to too much trouble, but it doesn't really look like that's going to happen. We are also attacking rear with our Mouflon. which is a bit on the dangerous side. You know, we're also hoping again to get rid of the sorceresses before they, you know, do too much damage. But it also means that we're more likely to get like spread out. And then yeah, here comes some fire elementals, which should deal with these phantasmal warriors like pretty effectively. But yeah, this isn't looking great here for these Mouflon. And we're getting, yeah, some, who's casting lightning bolt? Oh yeah, I guess we do have some air on these guys. Now our pretender is going in. Maybe should have gone attack rear with the pretender. But you know, was a little bit concerned. You know, some of those sorceresses, if I recall, had pretty high death. And I was not sure if the Mouflon were going to be able to pull it off, and the Mouflon still might not be able to pull it off. But yeah, the fire elementals and our pretender and the crossbowmen are able to take care of the phantasmal warriors. And it does look like we're going to come away with this without too many casualties. It's definitely a bit sad to be losing the Mouflon. Those are probably like the best, you know, most effective part of our army, you know, barring our pretender. And you know, the fire elementals are definitely really nice. But overall, that was pretty clean. And we don't use too many gems. We do use a few. Yeah, so we lose 5 Mouflon, you know, 1 crossbowman. And, you know, using the crossbowman as a front line, at least against, you know, phantasmal warriors, which probably not the best test, but they held up okay against phantasmal warriors, so that's something, I guess. Nonetheless, you know, we do take a throne province, so always happy about that. We'll have to check, you know, what throne it is. Like, is it a useful throne? And then Utgard attacks against Midgard. They're just pinging this throne, or sorry, pinging this fort. Like, yeah, definitely looks like Midgard has plenty of stuff here to say hello, including, no, not their pretender. Yeah, I'm not really familiar with late age Midgard at all, so they have some astral mages here, it looks like. So probably some kind of communion. I'm sure we'll get to see it in detail. We're definitely going to leave our scout parked there. Some unexpected events. I'm sure these will be good. Disease is spreading. Only 70 people die. That's not that bad. And we lose half the income in this province. That's not ideal. And some permanent income, also not ideal. And then some warring tribes, unrest. I mean, our Dominion generates unrest anyway, so this is still bad, but it's kind of just par for the course for us. And I'll catch you guys after the cut. All right, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. Well, it definitely looks like Midgard was correct in their assessment that Utgard would be throne rushing, because I can foresee no reason to move your entire force here to take this province. We have talked about how there's not a ton of leadership in this army, so it does kind of have to stay together. But yeah, I don't know, right? Like, why not finish off this fort? I guess, you know, they could just be raiding, right? Because they did poke inside. They wanted to see what was inside, but also I feel like there's a good chance that they were headed for this neutral throne, which of course, starting now, is no longer neutral. So I don't think that we can stop this army. We'll see. Like, really, the wild card is our pretender, and I think she has a chance in the right situation. You know, if she lands somewhere where a lot of the giants are already busy with a lot of other units, so she doesn't get focused down immediately and then can start to petrify some of the giants surrounding her, then I think she has a decent chance at least causing a lot of casualties, because while these guys do deal a lot of damage, you know, she has decent protection and a decent number of hit points, and she does have regeneration. She's probably not going to be repelling nearly as much because they're, you know, roughly the same size as her, a little bit smaller, I think. But she still probably has better skills, but not significantly better skills than them. The fear might help a bit. I can't remember. I think these guys are berserkers. Anyway, it's certainly, if she gets surrounded by a bunch of Gamherdings, that's lights. But we have, you know, made some efforts to make sure that she's not going to get surrounded. So we've done a bit of a province defense dump. Again, like, these guys are mostly just here to take axe hits, right? And, you know, well, they'll die quickly, but, you know, since giants can only kill them one at a time and we'll have a lot of human troops, the killing will take some time. And, you know, while that's happening, our pretender can hopefully eliminate some of those sacreds. We are, of course, going to make some lesser fire elementals, which will do okay, but they're just going to die so fast that I just, you know, there's no fire resistance, sure, but they have magic weapons. They deal a ton of damage. We're not going to be able to make that many fire elementals. We are bringing in a little bit of reinforcements, right? And so, you know, we're going to load all of our fire elementals more or less onto one flank, and we're going to load all of our Mouflon onto one flank as well, set to attack rear. Because there is that long line. So the other thing too about this army, again, which we've discussed, not a lot of leadership. So we are actually going to set our Pretender to attack rear, which is dangerous, right? Because that increases the likelihood that she's going to get surrounded. Her script should be long enough. Yeah, it's 3, maybe could have added one more spell. So that potentially could be a mistake, because I think, you know, with 4 spells, the Gamherdings are probably already, you know, well on their way. So as long as there aren't a bunch to set to bodyguard, then, you know, she'll be okay and might be able to eliminate the leadership. And, you know, assuming that she can't, the hope is that the fire elementals will hopefully help break the line and allow some of our Mouflon to get through and attack rear. And they have a decent chance, you know, at killing those commanders. If none of those things happen, right, then we're going to lose everything. So, you know, yeah, I don't know. Gambling everything here, perhaps not the wisest decision. We have options, of course, like, you know, we don't have full eyes on the thrones. Yeah, we're still working on it, but we do know that Utgard certainly isn't close. They aren't immediately, like, about to throne rush, right? They still have a little ways to go. So, you know, we certainly could pull back, let them take this, and then, you know, they're probably going to be interested in finishing off Midgard and maybe doing other things, and then, you know, we can come back and reoccupy it, right? Again, this army can only be in so many places. On the other hand, maybe they're planning on leaving it up here, right? Because, of course, they are recruiting their sacreds back at their capital, and these guys are such a long way away that it's probably more useful in a lot of ways to leave them up here, but, you know, they may want to go down and collect, like, this throne or something. So, you know, it's not critical that we gamble everything right now, but at the same time, like, this is kind of why we sent our army over here. And while we will get stronger with, like, full-size fire elementals, and I think Incinerate will be very helpful as soon as we get, you know, more mages in there. In a lot of ways, this army is probably the weakest that it's ever going to be, with the very limited amount of leadership that it has. Like, really, you know, adding 3 or 4 more leaders and some bodyguards is going to make this army a lot tougher to deal with, because we won't have the option of sniping the leadership. So anyway, all this to say that I went ahead and, you know, decided to hold. We're going to claim the throne, preach. We're just going to patrol, you know, in case we do get attacked and lose the battle. I don't want to do any free site searching for them. And I think, you know, they'll either move back onto the fort or attack us, so we'll only lose 1 turn of gem income. Otherwise, we're going to try to hold this province here, and then we are moving up our raiders here. Actually, Vettiheim reached out to us, just sort of discussing the situation. And I said I was fine with them, you know, taking the capital, but that I was going to need these 2 forests for resources, and, you know, forgetting that Vettiheim really likes forests. So they offered that I could have 37, but that they wanted to take 30, and I have not made any decisions about that just yet. That would be a lot of territory to be giving up. Also, Atlantis has reached out and offered a non-aggression pact, saying that they're not really interested in tangling with us, which is interesting. Atlantis is possibly somebody we were thinking about attacking. Although, again, you know, yeah, they're in a lot of these lakes. We've talked before about how Atlantis is not, like, an ideal first target, and they're really not an ideal ever target in a lot of ways. Pretty much for the, you know, the same reasons we discussed before. It's just going to be difficult for us to get underwater. At least once we get our super combatants up, then, you know, we can start to think about going underwater a little bit more. But that is kind of tempting, right? It's like, if we accept a non-aggression pact with Atlantis, then, you know, we have this border covered, this border covered. Granted, we have this little Ulm, you know, gap, but it's not looking like Ulm is going to attack, and that would be an awkward war. We know that Raga is, like, somewhat interested in being friendly, although we have definitely left the offer of a non-aggression pact for a long time. But I am planning on reaching out and offering to forge some gear once we find some freaking earth gems. Maybe I'll just trade for some earth gems. That would probably be the thing to do. Just be like, yeah, I can forge you some stuff, but we need some earth gems to do it. And I think, you know, once we're forging for them, then they're probably not going to be interested in attacking us. and feeling that, like, yeah, this is a relatively, like, peaceful relation, but it does leave us with the option of attacking in without having, you know, to worry about a non-aggression pact, and, you know, they get involved with someone else. All this to say that that would then leave us relatively free to fight over the Xibalban spoils with Vedheim. And, you know, I mean, this force from Vedheim, you know, is serious, definitely. Like, Vedi are pretty nasty. They're definitely going to, you know, whoop us in melee. But, you know, otherwise it's kind of like, well, they have a bunch of crossbowmen. We have a bunch of crossbowmen. You know, their bless wasn't too crazy. They're also in pretty heavy heat right now. So if we were going to fight them for Xibalba, like, now would be the time to do it. Assuming not everything gets destroyed, right? We don't really have anything to do. And if they're not going to, you know, leave us with these forests, instead, like, we're going to leave them entrenched in a capital that they picked up, you know, pretty cheap, right? They didn't do any of the lifting. We didn't do any of the lifting either, right? It was Midgard that did the lifting for Xibalba. And, you know, we're going to give them a forest that they're going to be popping, you know, extra mages out of right on our borders. And then all of this is going to turn cold. So, yeah, maybe we do fight Vedheim for Xibalba. So that's kind of the goings on. We're, you know, moving forward. Our raider, this guy's probably just going to do site searching. You know, we'll see. We might send him in with the Mouflon, but, you know, we certainly don't need to. Yeah, not expecting Xibalba to attack with this, but they could. And then in terms of recruitment, we are just recruiting some more crossbowmen, another oppressor. I think we are recruiting another, yeah, shackled mage here, mostly for research purposes. Although I do think, you know, like, at least 3 shackled mages, right? 2 is the first breakpoint at which, you know, you actually get a path boost. And then the third one just helps offload fatigue so you don't immediately burn things out. Although, again, our communions are kind of rough. So, you know, 3 is normally what I aim at for more normal communions. But for Phlegran communions, maybe it's not even worthwhile. And I should just focus on, you know, the breakpoints of 4 and assume, again, like, if we get into a fight, probably we just burn out all the shackled mages. So we'll see. We might recruit another shackled mage there. But, you know, we probably want, like, roughly 4 shackled mages per fort at least. And then in the capital, we are recruiting a few Mouflon, another Oppressor Archon, finishing off Cyclops Smith. And yeah, I think that more or less covers turn 19. Alright, welcome back to Game 10 of Lucid's 2022 tournament, where we are playing Phlegra. It is turn 20, and we have gambled everything on a throne defense. So yeah, let's see if it happens. No. So it looks like possibly I misread Utgard's intentions, or they decided that, you know, it's not a battle that they needed to deal with right now. We finished research and evocation. I forgot to mention we did just slip this in there just to, it's something we could hit, we knew we would hit this turn, so it would provide a little bit of extra in terms of what our mages could cast in terms of fire magic, in case we did have a battle this turn. Eventually I do think we will want some evocation research, because, you know, we have a lot of elemental paths and there's a lot of good evocation spells there. We do get the throne claim on there, so nice to see our pretender up there. And then we actually get pretty lucky, finally, with some site searching. More water gems. Let's see, air gem, that's nice. Not familiar with this one. So we'll have to take a look. You know, maybe it's a special one. Maybe we get a foreign mage from it. Vedheim proclaiming a prophet and storming Xibalba. And yeah, there's probably, nope, Xibalba coming out. My mistake. Right, because we knew there was some stuff in here. Quite a few casters as well. And yeah, like, right, so, okay, so there is some swarm, so alteration 4. Oh, also there's a troll shaman here. I feel like this is an addition, probably a mercenary group, I'm thinking? Yeah, these guys look like mercenaries, maybe. I don't know, hard to say, because they're Vedi. So, you know, Vedheim obviously recruits a lot of Vedi as well, but I'm pretty sure there was not a troll there before. So we'll see what Xibalba's doing. They have, you know, fewer crossbowmen, so that's not going to go great for them. And yeah, the bats, they don't love arrow fire, whether it's crossbow bolts or, yeah, really whatever. So this is brutal for them. I don't know if they could have, like, rear deployed a little bit more. Of course, like, yeah, Vedheim doing a good job with some flanking from the Wolf Brothers. So if Xibalba had rear deployed their bats, that wouldn't have gone well. And, like, yeah, Xibalba doesn't really have much of a front line other than crossbowmen. It's not really working out for them. Hopefully not a sign of things to come for certain other nations. planning on using crossbowmen as their front line. Although Vettiheim dealing a decent amount of friendly fire, that is kind of unavoidable when you're using you know, a lot of archers, a lot of crossbowmen. It looks like Xibalba did summon some imps, which is a pretty good option early on for your magic if you have blood. But yeah, there's just not enough stuff here for Xibalba. So a pretty convincing win from Vettiheim, and you know, maybe a highlight of, well, certainly a highlight of what we would have to deal with if we decided to fight Vettiheim, which we have made no decision on. But I am, you know, kind of feeling about moving in that direction. The other thing too is that there's a good chance that Miklin's war ends relatively soon, and we knew that Vettiheim was somewhat interested in fighting Miklin, which conversely probably means that Miklin is somewhat interested in fighting Vettiheim, because they probably don't have a non-aggression pact, and those two are neighbors. So we could have a potential ally in that war. We have decent relations with Miklin, so we'll probably want to talk to them before we make a decision. But we might go in on our own. Let's see, Plague. Yeah, I don't know. This province is it's having some trouble, and then we have some patrolling, and that's it. I'll catch you guys after the jump. All right. This is the situation and what we're doing about it. We are moving our main army north, probably to go after this neutral throne here. That's going to be the biggest thing. There is some concern about leaving this throne undefended. If Utgard decides they want to come back, there's still danger potentially of them throne rushing. But I have talked with Atlantis some. They offered me a non-aggression pact, which I agreed to. Definitely talked, some about maybe attacking them, but with all their underwater holdings, I think that was probably always a bad idea. And they are also concerned about Utgard, so potentially we might go that direction in the future. But in the short term, they said that they're attacking Raga. Also, the Raga player, I don't think we found a sub yet, but they'll be subbing out. So I don't think they've been super invested in this game. They don't look very large. And I don't think they're going to be able to hold off Atlantis. I mean, we'll see, right? A sub definitely can change things, but we do not have a non-aggression pact with Raga, despite planning on being friendly. But, if they're going to get knocked out, then we would definitely be interested in trying to pick some stuff up. I don't know if we're going to try to go for any infrastructure necessarily, because, we'd like to keep decent relations with Atlantis, because probably we're going to end up fighting Vettiheim. We'll see, right? We might not jump into this war immediately. I think I talked about how Vettiheim and I had discussed, and they want this forest, but they said they were willing to let us have this forest. This is them taking most of Xibalba, especially since they have some raiders here, so they're probably going to take, I would imagine, this. Interested in some resources. They're not hugely resource dependent, but it is always nice to have some of the provinces surrounding a fort, and it's definitely looking like they will get the capital. So, we might be able to push our raiding group, one more province, and we'll come away with some stuff, definitely. But, it's with them also getting the capital. I've played Vettiheim, and Vettiheim really does want forests. So this is not even like that unreasonable of an ask for them to be making. But, our army is already going to be over in this direction. Again, they're not going to have a super secure hold on Xibalba. They do have a lot of stuff here. They definitely outnumber us. I think it's well over 200. Yeah, 255 units. Well, okay, I guess like 220 now-ish. Well, I guess a bit fewer after these losses, but still, I think our army is, 180 units, something like that. Yeah, actually even less, only 135. So, again, we've been struggling with these, high resource costs. And also, just not having enough infrastructure. Speaking of infrastructure, we are starting to fortify, at least by building a lab here in this throne province. We'll probably start a fort here next turn. It's not going to be a great fort for us, and we kind of have fort problems in general. So, I was talking about putting a fort here, but the problem with that, I realized, is we're almost out of resources in this forest, right, where we're planning on, where we are foreign recruiting mages currently. And, if we put a fort here, there's a pretty good chance we'll just wipe out all these resources. So we may not want to put a fort here. This is a somewhat attractive province, although, again, if we're not going to get a hold of this forest, That's not really going to provide a ton of resources for us. It actually has decent resources, for planes, so it wouldn't be the worst fort, and it does cover a very valuable province, so in that sense it's nice, but it's kind of right on our border. That's not ideal. Also, this province is kind of insane. I don't know if we've fully talked about it, but yeah, so there's the Enchanter here. I feel like we've known about him for a little while. Definitely going to be a useful mage for us. Slow to recruit, which hurts, but not actually even that expensive. Nature magic is not really something we have a lot of. We have it on our Pretender, so some coverage, but it would be nice to have other options than just our Pretender. But then also this allows us to recruit sorceresses. We don't really have a ton of astral, right? We're just a little bit out of our cap onlys. We don't really have a ton of air either. We can wire it into our communions decently well from our oppressors. But air 2 is pretty relevant. That does allow these ladies to cloud trapeze. We also get a shot, pretty unlikely, but possible that we get an air death, if we recruit enough of these. Now, considering these are both in the same province, right? It's like, yeah, I don't know. We're not going to be able to recruit that. These enchanters are slow to recruit. The enchantresses are slow to recruit, and then we want a rare random off the sorceress. That's not really something we can count on. But still, this is, even just from a gem perspective, this is a really valuable province. So we kind of want to put a fort here as well, but then that knocks out a ton of resources for our existing forts and draws off resources again from a place that we've already invested into. So I guess all this to say that I don't know where the next fort should go. We need another fort, and we kind of have to put a fort on the throne anyway. Long term, we absolutely will want that, and probably short term as well, right? We're concerned about Utgard possibly trying to throne rush, not putting a throne on top of a. Sorry, scratch that, reverse it. Not putting a fort on top of a throne would be pretty irresponsible if we're worried about a throne rush. So we'll probably, put a fort here first, even though it's not going to be ideal in a lot of ways. The other thing is, adepts of the Silver Order basically provide the same stuff as those enchantresses. So yeah, we probably won't bother with the enchantresses and just stick with the enchanters in that other province, and maybe just foreign recruit out of there as well. No possibility of that air death, but this is very unlikely anyway. So that's kind of where our infrastructure is at the moment. And then, like I said, our army is headed north probably for this neutral throne, but, we also have the option to detour against Vedheim, depending on how that conflict goes. We're going to try to do some raiding, see what we can pull away. We may also wait until, they get involved somewhere else. It may also be wise for us to wait until after winter to fight Vedheim. On the other hand, there are heat scales in here. And Vedheim is absolutely going to put a temple up, right, and start to fortify this and start to push their cold scales in. So, while usually I think it's a decent idea to wait to fight Vedheim if you have the luxury of fight them in summer, but in this case, it might actually be better to fight them sooner rather than later, even though we're headed into winter. So we'll see. Still up in the air about all of that. Definitely still have to keep our eye on Utgard. We should probably start moving some stuff. This turn is already rolled, but next turn we'll probably move these guys in our capital with an eye to start raiding Raga. And then in terms of recruitment, let's see, yeah, we're going all with oppressors right now. They are going to be decently useful in the mid game, and we're running out of time with which to recruit our other cap-only mages. We can always recruit these guys instead of the tyrants once they come out, but it just sort of feels like we really should focus on trying to recruit the tyrants. I honestly don't even know if that's the best strategy, but I've heard late age Phlegra described right as a super combatant with a nation attached. So I do think that's where their focus is, and having never played them before, I would like to give the tyrants a full shot. So we'll see how they work out. So at least for the moment, focusing on the oppressors, also getting Mouflon in the capital, of course, and that's pretty much it for troop recruitment. We're not making a ton of money. The unrest situation, we got a couple unrest events, one in our capital, one here. So, that's definitely hurting. Of course, we took Misfortune 3, and we have some turmoil, so can't really complain about it. It's just, part of Phlegran life. But it does mean that we don't have a ton of money. And we probably won't have a ton of money next turn either, because we're going to start a palisade here most likely. So, yeah, we're going to be able to reinforce somewhat, but not a ton. Research-wise, let's see. Yeah, we're gonna have Conjuration 5 next turn, so that's gonna be nice. And then we're gonna go for Flaming Arrows, which I do think will be a useful upgrade for us. And then we're gonna run up Alteration. We'll see if we go all the way up to 6. 5 is gonna be nice for that Incinerate, and then 6 is gonna be nice for the Soul Vortex once we actually get the Tyrants out. But we might want to cut 6. And maybe even 5, depending on how soon we have to fight Utgard, because our construction research is still pretty low. And the other thing too is, since we are a heavy fire nation, I perhaps should have gone up to construction 6 sooner. Right, we're gonna want to go up construction anyway for our tyrants, and we could have gone with a lantern centric strategy, right? Just like rush Conjuration 6, get the lanterns for the research, and then like really just like triple down on research, like since we already have magic scales. So that's definitely a thought for future strategies with Phlegra. We went with a more cautious defensive route, which I don't think was unwarranted considering the room and some of the blesses that are out there. Because again, like the construction research, it's a bit of a chicken and an egg problem. It's not really going to benefit us until the tyrants come out, but then we also want to have it right as the tyrants come out. But still, Conjuration 4 will be enough, or sorry, Construction 4 will be enough to gear them out, I think, acceptably, and we should be able to pick that up fairly easily. Our research is still not in a great place, again, being a little light on infrastructure, so we're not able to push out all that many mages yet. But it's definitely headed in the right direction, and we should be throwing up a couple more forts here soon. So yeah, I think that more or less covers turn 20.